edition of Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik.
You were playing everybody and we're winning the game last night.
The head coach is fighting people on the sideline.
What do you got for me?
I know you're a part of Tight Pants Society.
No fucking play is that a gimme, right?
So here we go. We have finally gotten to the NFL Draft edition of the Gresh Anik Show. I am Gresh. He is Anik. This is Gas, and I'm a little ornery today. I'm just saying right now, I might say some stuff that YouTube might have to bleep. I might say some stuff that might get me in trouble. It's been a very interesting time for me because of things I've said in the past. But Jason Anik, it is time for us to really dig into the draft. How are you, friend?
Oh, great. And I can't wait to get into some of the stuff that have you fired up today. For me, with this NFL draft and anything in my life as I become an old man, I feel like I always talk about how old I am, but I try and enjoy the anticipation, right? 2 days out, right? Because all of a sudden we're going to blink. It's April 25th. And then we got to wait all day for the beginning of draft of round 2 Friday night. So I'm all fired up. So much has come out as we sit here coming to you live Tuesday morning at 11 a.m. So much has transpired, even just rumblings in the last 2 hours. I guess the one thing I'm most fascinated by is what will be noise and what will be truth, right? For the last couple of weeks, it's been chalk, right? Mm-hmm. Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. Draft begins at 4. Some rumblings this morning. Maybe that's not the case. Good to see you, brother. All fired.
Well, and let's start with some of the news of this morning before you and I really do the deep dive into the Patriots. And that is that the collective group of ESPN insiders, apparently Peter Schrager had something that Adam Schefter really had, but he gave it to Peter Schrager so they could all tweet it out together, right? So we're in that mode right now. But apparently Cleveland and the Giants are getting calls on the number 2 and the number 3 pick in the draft. Now, Jay, I don't want to take the steam out of this, but I think there's some important context here. We learned from that Giants documentary, right? Nothing that the Patriots did. We learned from that Giants documentary last year that the day before the draft, and I think even the morning of the draft, Joe Shane picked up the phone and called Elliott Wolf, and it was the what's it going to take. And that's where we learned that Elliott Wolf was looking for like a 1, a 2, and a 3, and a 1 next year, and Shane like basically hung up the phone on him. So while I do think there are people, Jay, that are legitimately trying to move up in the draft because it feels like there's some steam on a couple of players that you and I are going to get into, I think we also need to remember like that call that went to Elliott Wolf. There are going to be some teams that are just going to check in and see what Cleveland is looking for because, Jay, I would dare say that if a team that is around 10, 11, like say Dallas is about to do something crazy because they want to go up and get Travis Hunter, they need to find out what that's going to cost them. The New England cost will be very different than I think some of these teams that are trying to get up there right now. So it's not to take steam out of it. It's to add context that this also isn't abnormal 48 hours out from the draft.
Yeah, it makes great sense. And, you know, I want to just go through a couple of notes with you because my brain has gotten so jumbled this morning based on all the different rumblings, right? It's like, oh, Will Campbell, right? Just not a talented kid anymore as of 2 days before the draft all of a sudden. It's unbelievable. But just a couple random thoughts for you. Stop me if you want at any point, you know. Mel Kiper Jr., keep in mind, has Shadeur Sanders rated higher than Cam Ward, which I just think is something that's getting lost in all of this, right? But as all this talk about Shadeur Sanders and who is going to, are the Giants interested at 3, whatever it may be, Mel Kiper Jr., who's been doing this since I was in kindergarten, does like Shadeur Sanders more than Cam Ward. He seems to be on an island there. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It is interesting that my man Mel is on an island there because I don't see it. But I think the problem is there's no greatness in this quarterback class. It's almost like there's no one to compare anyone to. So if you like Sanders over Ward, there isn't a big quibble, I think, because no one really loves Cam Ward.
Yeah, I hear you. And I guess one team, I think this was according to Schefter, I guess, had no first-round grade on any quarterback in this draft, right?
Jay, I'm not surprised at that, to be quite honest with you, because I think if you're looking at it through the lens of I need a quarterback as a fan, like if you're a Titans fan, you're gonna look at Cam Ward that way versus maybe just kind of looking at the tape or comparing him to other people. It's like you don't draft the guy at the position who isn't worthy of a number 1 pick, number 1 overall, because you need a quarterback.
It does seem very much, though, there is smoke that the New York Football Giants would love to trade up to number 1 and get Cam Ward, right? There was some smoke there. It seemed like that was something they attempted to do. That's why I think it's still extremely unlikely they take Shadeur at 3.
I'm kind of with you. And there was a report out last night saying that Daboll really liked Jaxson Dart. And if Dart is going to be one of those guys that falls out of the first round, the Giants will be there with that early second round pick to where maybe they could, add to that position. Let's also remember they got 2 veterans that they probably spent about $18 million on, could be up to $25 million between Winston and Russell Wilson. So it would make sense, Jay, for more of a second or a third round quarterback than it would be to, because if you take Sanders, is he going to play? And that really is the wild card with the Giants right now is, if you're Joe Shane and you're Brian Daboll and what happened last year with everything with Saquon, can you really be confident that you're going to be the guys that are going to coach Shadeur Sanders if you make that pick? So there might be a little bit of self-preservation in taking a plug-and-play player like Abdul Carter right now and throwing him on that roster.
I hear you. I think if they loved Shadeur, I don't think it would matter. I think between Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, it's really like one salary. Just not a huge investment there. So ultimately, I think if they like Sanders, they would take him. I just am sort of so fascinated by this, right? Reading quotes today, they're from one GM. There isn't an elite offensive tackle in this draft. So I would say to you, Armand member, Will Campbell, neither one elite. You agree with that?
Yeah, I would, but that doesn't mean that they can't be 10-year starters in the NFL. Look at Colton Miller from the Raiders, right? That guy was a first-round pick, but he was more towards the middle of the first round. But he's I think it's heading into year 9 or 10. That's a pretty good career. Jay, I think we lack, and I would say analysts and fans alike, I think we lack a little bit of the way the teams would think. I don't think teams look at first-round picks and say, oh, this guy is going to be here for 15 years or 20 years or something like that. If you spend a first-round pick on, say, an offensive tackle, and that guy comes in and does a good job. Matt Light was never the best left tackle ever, but boy, was he functional, and he was tough, and he was clutch. If Will Campbell turns out like Matt Light, and we get him for 8 to 10 years, that's a win of a pick.
Not in my opinion. Not in my opinion. No,
really? Tell me why.
I'm not as high on Matt Light as you were. I think he, a lot of things got covered up. I think he faded. I think he had a very short prime, in my opinion. But regardless of what happens, I think the Patriots have, it's just one man's opinion. We're certainly not going to go down a big Matt Light rabbit hole.
No. But I think putting the proper context, not every first round pick on Thursday is going to be a Hall of Famer or guaranteed to make it, I guess.
But when you're in the fourth slot, do you know what I mean? I think it is a little different. And there's a lot of talk about how picks 10 through 40, you're getting the same level of talent in this.
Yeah, I think there is, because there isn't the great player. And if you look at the tops of drafts, that's what you're trying to go for. Or if there were if the draft 3 years ago, right, where Belichick was terrible and then no one liked the crop that he brought in and stuff like that. It's the whole what's available to you. Like, he took the best quarterback in that draft, got 1 year out of him, then ruined him. But the rest of these guys, minus the number 1 overall pick, who was supposed to be a transcendent player who hasn't transcended anything yet, was supposed to be bums. So to me, some of it is the talent that is available to you. You can't manufacture a player, but if you take Will Campbell and in 5 years he's gone and Abdul Carter's tearing it up, then you're going to end up getting some blowback, because there's probably only 2 or 3 great Hall of Fame level players in this draft.
A lot of noise about teams inquiring about moving up to number 2 or number 3. I'm sure different teams have different reasons, and there it is on your screen about why they would be moving up, right? So, and to your point, which is very well taken about the individual teams, I think teams could be calling for all sorts of reasons. I find it hard to believe that if I'm picking up that phone, I'm not interested perhaps in Travis Hunter. But some of these teams that are like, if you're the Browns, are you maybe trying to do a little bit of a reset here with some draft capital and maybe give someone else the rights to Travis Hunter?
Well, they have too much draft capital right now, quite honestly. If you look at Cleveland, they arguably have the most picks and the most power to move around on the board in the draft. I think some of it might be projecting to next year. Like, can we steal someone's first round pick where we know the team's not going to be very good? Because I do think next year you and I will be talking about the Arch Manning sweepstakes and everybody trying to move around to grab, the kid named Manning that's going to automatically juice up your fans. But I do think some of this in terms of moving up is also how costly is it going to be for me to move up? Well, what can I get maybe moving down? Like if you feel that the price in moving up is getting too high, then maybe where you are in the draft, there might be a little bit of value for you to kind of sort of move around the board. I think Cleveland is staying at 2 unless they're absolutely bowled over. They need credibility, Jay, in their market. They've screwed up the Deshaun Watson thing. They need Travis Hunter the same way we in New England need and want Travis Hunter, that game-breaking player that is automatically going to bring excitement every time he is on the field. Cleveland needs that desperately right now as much as we do. We're just, thanks Gerard Mayo and winning that last game of the year. Otherwise, we'd be sitting here maybe talking about sliding back 1 or 2 spots, getting someone's first-round pick, and still getting Travis Hunter.
Oh, gosh, I hear you. And as we sit 2 days out, I'm glad you brought that up because we should be having very different conversations today. I do think some of the potential teams that are calling to get into slots 2 or 3 could potentially be calling about Ashton Jeanty, right? You hear these Saquon Barkley comparisons, you hear about him breaking tackles, and everything like that. I don't know. I guess when I can't get the words blue chip out of my head. And there is a part of me that would be much more excited if the Patriots took Jeanty at 4 than if they took Will Campbell. I do think there is a chance that a team comes up perhaps and blows the Giants away to jump in front of the Patriots or to jump in front of a couple teams to get Jeanty. Do you think some of these calls are for the running back perhaps?
Yeah, I would think so. And look, if I'm the Patriots over the next 48 hours, I am verbally filleting Ashton Jeanty and putting it out there that, hey, this is someone we're interested in. Now, the intel I've been getting, they are interested in Ashton Jeanty. He is high up on their board. He is a consideration for the Patriots to kind of mull over at number 4. But this is where, and you and I have been really on the Vrabel train. We like what they've done. They're kind of back to par. Now you're adding draft picks to make your roster better, not just fill gaping holes on it like there was last year. But if there's one thing I can't criticize them for is there hasn't been enough buzz out of the Patriots building trying to inflate their own draft pick by putting the good mouth on some of these players. I'd love to hear someone with the Patriots come out, or maybe some of these reports leak out that they really like Ashton Jeanty. Maybe Campbell isn't necessarily the lock. See if you can smoke somebody out, because think of this, Jay, even if the Raiders jump in front of Jacksonville just to take Jeanty, if you lose Campbell, maybe you can get Membo. I think Jacksonville goes defense. So maybe you can slide down, get an extra pick for next year, go to number 6 and still get the player that you want. But you got to build the value, and they're not doing that right now.
I agree with you, and I'd love to know what Mike Vrabel would say to that. You know what I mean? You see Aaron Glenn in New York wanting everything to be quiet, and I respect the sort of old school bucket Mike Vrabel that maybe just doesn't want to fuck around, if you will.
Yeah.
There's a first F-bomb. So a couple other things I just want to get to here. So since 1967, this is the closest to the start of round 1 that there have been no trades for picks in round 1, which I think is interesting. And what I just want to say, because I said I can't get blue chips out of my head, right? We talk about the top 3 that is, very likely still to happen, in my opinion, despite all the rumblings today. Ward, Hunter, Carter, right? Everyone else feels as though they're sort of on that second tier. Maybe Ashton Jeanty, maybe Mason Graham are blue chips, right? But it doesn't feel like Will Campbell is sort of that elite guy. So as we talk about what the Patriots are going to want to do, I don't want to sit here and blindly say, oh, I'd like them to trade out of 4 just because I don't think there's like that blue chipper there. You feel me?
I think there's only really 2 great players in this draft. One is Hunter, and Carter might be. But to me, he's the only guy that I would put on the might be list. This feels like the kind of draft where if you're getting someone second round on and they hit, great, and they turn into a superstar, a lot of it is kind of unexpected. But I think with the first round guys, Jay, this is going to be more of maybe a one contract draft. and not saying Isaiah Wynn, but that's kind of the example that I can think of. Like, you get a better player than an Isaiah Wynn, but ultimately, it's one contract, maybe another year. You got a guy for 5 or 6 years, and then ultimately you're moving on, but you're getting value out of the player. That's why it's interesting. You and I differ on kind of the value of what you're going to get at number 4, the expectations of how long they play, things like that. I just think this is that kind of draft and the way it's setting up. But Jay, do not rule out the fact that the Patriots stick at 4 and they do end up maybe landing on Ashton Jeanty at number 4 and then trading back in to go for the Simmons kid from Ohio State or Josh Connerly, who really is only the other true left tackle. A lot of people are on Armand Membu, but he's like Caden Wallace last year. He'd be flipping from right to level. I don't think New England wants anything to do with that. I think if they're going to take a tackle, it's a guy who really is a left tackle.
I agree. What about Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas? He's more a mid-round, guy.
I don't know if he has the kind of oomph that Vrabel would like. Actually. Yeah.
I guess, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I guess the Matt Light stuff, like, I think Will Campbell is going to be a stud. So there's going to be no part of me that's upset, and he can prove everybody wrong every day of the week. So I would love to see them go in that direction at 4. I guess just with all the rumblings about sort of the lack of his sort of elite, and it's arms. I don't care about the arms. I guess I would be more excited, I think, possibly in 2 nights if Ashton Jeanty's the name called. But Will Campbell, I feel like it may be a blessing in disguise that this guy, Will Campbell, sort of is there for them.
Well, look, I know that you're not into Matt Light, the player, but here's what I would say. If you draft Campbell and he is around for 11 years, only misses a part of 1 season, and starts 153 games, I think we would be pretty happy with that pick. Now, he is not Orlando Pace or anyone like that. I'm not going to sit here and sell you that. But remember the 1 year that we had with Trent Brown at left tackle? If in that really good year, which was good, not great, even for Trent Brown,
right?
If Will Campbell can be that, then they're going to be okay, and they should be okay. The question is, because if they draft Ashton Jeanty, then really, Jay, what the Patriots are telling us is we're really going to be a 50-50 team. We're going to lean on the run, we're going to pound the rock, and we're not just going to put it in the kid's hands. So if you take Jeanty, you might get all horned up whenever they take him. And then when the Patriots are winning 17-13 and you're going, shit, how come the kid isn't throwing the ball? The drafting of Jeanty probably should have told us kind of the direction of the football team and they were going. So if you're a Drake May lover, some of this Ashton Jeanty talk, which gets you all fired up, might turn into Drake May only throwing the ball 25 times in some boring football come September.
Fine with me. I really think it's interesting when
I'm with you, by the way. I don't care about the style of football.
Yeah, I know you are.
Just win, damn it.
It really is interesting when you think about the noise and what's out there, right? Because, gosh, how many times have we heard Will Campbell to New England at 4, regardless of the short arms or whatever you hear? And maybe you're not hearing Jeanty because maybe the Patriots are interested in him and they're being smart about it and keeping it close to the vest. So that's what's going to – I still am going to be shocked if the top 3 don't play out the way we expect them to. And if that's the case, then the Patriots really, in my mind, have had control really since day one. Because if one of those guys falls, you don't go ahead.
No, because I know I know the road that you were going down. You were going to make a really good point there in terms of, they're in unfortunately, they're in this position where they don't control what they could have controlled. And that's the part that gets really frustrating. So let me ask you this. Do you and I share the same wish for the number 4 pick, that it's Travis Hunter? Are we sharing a brain on that? Is that fair to say?
You mean Will Campbell? You said the number 4 pick.
No, I did, but I'm looking for, if we did our wish, our wacky prediction, a doomsday scenario, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
My wish would be Hunter and then trade back up into the first round.
Yes, but I also would say that I actually would lean on that being my wacky, because Travis Hunter, as we sit here, I don't think he's available, right? Unless they trade up, he's not going to be there at 4. Under any circumstance.
And by the way, dude, I looked on the trade up to go to number 2, even from number 4. Right. It's this year's 2nd round pick and probably a 4th rounder and maybe a middle round pick next year. It's a lot just to move up 2 spots.
Yeah, I hear you. So my wish would be, as of 2 days before the draft, my wish would be that they get blown away by some offer at 4 and they move out and they don't lose out on one of the, and then maybe you can still get Campbell or Membu or even Banks Jr.
Juicy.
perhaps. But I guess as I sit here today, I would like them to move out of that number 4 spot, because I think, people are calling about number 2 and number 3. Anyone calling on number 4? Or are they just calling about Hunter or Carter, perhaps? So if Hunter, look, I don't think Hunter's going to be there. If Abdul Carter, Mike Tannenbaum said this morning, he thinks the Giants are taking Shadeur at 3. If Abdul Carter is there at 4, I think the Patriots run to the podium. You think maybe not so fast.
Oh, no. I think you and I are definitely on the other side of this. I think if they're staying at 4, they're taking Campbell. The thing that would be interesting if Carter fell to 4 wouldn't be if they take them. It might be how fast do they then trade out of that pick, because someone below says, holy ish, we didn't think Carter would get out of the top 3. Let's call New England and see if we can make a deal. Now, those teams that are moving up, I don't necessarily know if those are teams in the top 10, maybe. Is that somebody from, so you have to really weigh how far are we really sliding down? And this is where your pre-draft work, Jay, comes into play, because let's say something like that happens, but Elliot Wolf knows the Raiders would trade Colton Miller for a 3rd or a 4th round pick, and you purpose the left tackle position with going and getting another veteran that you would have to turn around and pay, but it might be worth it given the options there. So I think New England has a couple of different ways for them to fortify their roster and get some picks if they want to be greedy. But if they want to be safe, it might be tough for Vrabel in his first year to look at Mr. Kraft and say, yeah, we're going to fart around with this number 4 pick when, RKK wants the immediate impact, the juice, the photo op of standing there with some guy 6'8" and he looks like he's about to eat him.
That's hilarious.
You're looking at me like a cookie.
No, you stopped me in my tracks. Do you not put Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter on that pedestal?
Nope.
Because you don't. Because I guess I'm
Hunter's
a little bit
above.
Okay, because I'm a little bit surprised that you, and I'll group you in with the Patriots organization. Mm-hmm. Maybe, or you feel like they agree with you that they wouldn't run to the podium at Carter at 4, where I think there are plenty of people that think they would. So I think there's probably some dissension in the organization, but you're pretty steadfast. Why are you lukewarm on Abdul Carter if he were to slide to 4?
Because I don't know exactly what he is. And if you look at the snap count for the guy over the years, and I might actually have it here it is. So in 2022, no snaps at defensive end, 316 at inside linebacker, 150 at outside backer. In 2023, no snaps at defensive end, 350 at inside backer, 205 at outside backer. And then this year, now it's 302 in terms of the snaps at defensive end, only 100 in the middle, 293 at outside. He's more of a DN outside backer, but is he a drop in coverage guy? Is he only a pass rusher? See, I think the kid Green from Marshall, great pass rusher. While Carter can do more, there's no question. I don't think he is an inside linebacker at the pro level. So therefore, he's really kind of an undersized defensive end or a stand-up outside backer who can get after the quarterback. But I just don't know if there is, is he going to be a badass defensive end for the next 10 years in the NFL and deal with the rigors of playing that position? I'm not so sure. It feels like a stand-up guy. I can't say he's elite when I can't figure out what position he really is.
Yeah, I mean, I think he jumps off the screen, and I think the explosivity puts him sort of in a class of his own. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. I think the dissension in the Giants organization, there must be some really interesting conversations happening there right now when you talk about Shane and Dable and their futures, and just in terms of where to go with number 3. I will be really interested to see where they end up on draft night.
Now, just quickly, I will say this: if you look at the defense. And there's Milton Williams, Barmore, Farms, Tonga's in there. In terms of their outside backers, they have Spillane, they have Anthony Jennings on the roster, and a defensive end, they have Keon White and Harold Landry. So I don't know. Could you argue that if Harold Landry is a Vrabel favorite? I don't think they're kicking Keon White out. And I'm not saying that they wouldn't put Abdul Carter in there if they think the guy is great. But when you look at this veteran defense, I think they're leaning more towards, hey, we built it with veterans. Now we'll sprinkle in some young guys, unless I'm really missing something. Or maybe the Patriots say, hell, we didn't expect him to fall here, and it's great value. And then, boom, I feel like they need more bigger bodies then they need edge bodies right now.
And that point's very well taken, but I would say when you're picking this high in the draft, to me, we're talking about elite athletes, blue chip players. I think Carter is the selection at 3 or at 4 if he's there and you get a bag.
Hey,
but
look, can I give you a quick one that you and I have never discussed? I'll tell you, if I'm New England, this is what I would seriously consider. I think Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State, is massively underrated. So if you're New England and Carter's there at 4 and you slide down and you've done your homework, either getting back up into the first round or trading for someone like Miller, why wouldn't they consider taking Tyler Warren, considering you still have Ramondre, you can find a passing back, bring in another tight end who is a complete tight end, and now you've really got something on offense and you find a different way to fix left tackle. Hasn't been talked about, don't know why.
Absolutely love every word of that. It's a deep running back draft. I think moving a couple slots, you still could get that player. I absolutely love that. I don't even have anything to add, or that's really interesting. And I think it's a play, when they were at their best, that tight end position was nicely fleshed out. We're talking about our wishes, right? And then wacky and then doom scenario. But what I want to say in terms of the wacky thing, right? And I know Hunter is your wish, but I think if something shakes up and Hunter or Carter is actually there at 4, that's the wacky scenario in my mind. I still don't think it happens.
You're probably right, because it would need to be a little chaotic in there, in Cleveland, or it would have to get a little chaotic with the Giants for Hunter to fall. What to me would really be the wacky scenario would be that the Patriots do give up the second round pick and something else to jump up and grab Travis Hunter to let us know that they really love the kid. And I know we're going to get to the pick slots, and there's some interesting combinations in there that DraftKings is offering in terms of 1 through 5 and the way they're drafted. But it's really interesting to me, Jay, that a lot of people like Abdul Carter, but no one has put the stamp of approval on him to be an absolute top 5 pick. And it feels like New England might be as interested in him as they would be moving out of number 4 to have someone come up who's interested in him. So that's also some red flags for me too. Like, I don't think Hunter's fallen past 2, like you said, but it feels like Carter could go from 3 to 6 based on how everything shakes down, which is really weird for a guy that everybody supposedly loves.
I think that's fascinating. I would be shocked if he gets past 5, because I think Jacksonville's perhaps looking to move down. I just would be shocked if he gets past 5. I think the Patriots will pull that trigger if he's there.
Hey, let me run one other thing by you, and that would be you mentioned the depth at running back. Do you think they need a real running back to replace Ramondre, or do they need the complementary running back and find Drake May's version of James White, let's say?
I don't look at this next upcoming season for the Patriots as a true contending season. Do I think the upside is perhaps making the playoffs if Buffalo has a little bit of a slip winning the division? Perhaps, but I don't look at next year as sort of being that year. But if Ashton Jeanty is there, maybe that does elevate them more quickly. But no, I think I don't love Ramondre overall. I don't love the makeup. I don't love the fumbling. I don't love the game overall. Gibson's an okay player. So I think a revamp of the position is going to be those. Ramondre Stevenson, I don't think is going to be part of the team that hoists the trophy 2-3 years down the road. So I guess for me, go ahead.
No. I was going to say it's interesting because I think with running backs, you have a 5 to 6 year window. Like even if you draft one in the first round, and, like Barkley, right? You have Barkley, he's on 4-year, you pick up the 5th-year option, maybe you franchise him for a year, and then you're shuffling these running backs out. So to your point, we're probably a year or 2 away from a full positional reset, but they're definitely going to sprinkle some people in. Our guy, Cody Bone Marrow, loves Cam Scadaboo. He wants the Patriots to get. Now, you know what, though? But in all seriousness, just quickly, from a personality standpoint, unless Scadaboo is a real knucklehead, it just looks like he has some kind of knucklehead tendencies every once in a while. But I think Vrabel's okay with that, quite honestly.
I hear you.
Yeah, just go get a wild man who it feels like Scadaboo would be the kind of guy who'd be like, what do you need me to do? Run in the burning building? Fine. Give me a fire blanket. I'll figure it out. Those are the kind of guys I think Vrabel would be really drawn to.
And that's why I can't get the name Will Campbell out of my head. because I just think he's that guy you want in the foxhole with you. I can't get the name Nick Chubb out of my head. I understand he had the ACL a couple of years ago, a little uneven in his return last year, but I just, a guy like that sitting around in the market that was the best running back in football, 48 months or, 24 months ago, I wouldn't mind the Patriots considering him. As we move through,
I'm only chuckling because they become the all ACL roster. They got Diggs, they got Chubb. Like if it hits, it's good. Hey, put him on the Edelman plan. Let him roid up and then sit for 4 games and play 13. Hey, it worked for Julian. He all but pretty much admitted. He was like, yeah, I figured that's what I had to do. And who cares? You lose 4. Hell, the way that Belichick used to nickel and dime him, 4 games losing salary, but he makes it up if he's healthy the rest of the year and making catches. Well, I would totally co-sign. You missed the first month, Stephon? Great. Stick that needle right in that ACL and just pump that thing up.
Well, I'm telling you, and my point about Nick Chubb is more based on the fact that I don't necessarily, right? If you take Jeanty, then everything changes. But if not, where, I might, if you ask me next season, do I think there's more upside in Ramondre Stevenson or Nick Chubb? Maybe I'd take a flyer on Nick Chubb. But anyway, I'm getting off the rails. In terms of our doom scenarios, if my doom scenario, I think would be, before I even say it, I understand that you believe there are a lot of tackles that the Patriots could come back into round 1 to get. But my doom scenario would be for them to move out of the number 4 spot and not get a great haul back and then have Campbell and Membu both sort of fall off and have Warren fall off and really be sort of, let's say you trade down to 8, 9, 10 in that realm and then be in that spot and really unhappy with where you are. So I think this is an unlikely scenario, but that would be a worst case scenario for me from a Patriots standpoint.
Yeah, and I think if there is a trade down, then we would have to start to think about what other possibilities could be there for the Patriots other than offensive tackle, right? It'd be a real signal that maybe there was some real smoke screens coming out of Foxborough, because everybody that talks about the Patriots seems to really be talking about Will Campbell in the match there, and then maybe some of these outliers. But if they trade out of 4, then we were all wrong on Campbell. Because he'll probably be gone. I don't think he would get past the Jets at number 7.
You think they would take him over Membu?
Over Membu? Yeah. They I like Vrabel, defensive guy. Aaron Glenn, old school defensive guy. I think there's a lot of things that he would gravitate toward liking about Campbell, kind of in the same way that Vrabel does. But that would be a real doomsday scenario where you're sitting there at say 10. Let's say you make a trade with Chicago or something crazy, right? Yeah, you get a bunch of picks, but you're hoping to get Warren and he goes off the board right in front of you. And then you're there at 10, you're holding your nuts and you're like, Jesus, we got to make another trade here, or flip it for a veteran player to kind of fill the hole on the roster that is clearly planned for a draft pick along the way here somewhere.
And I think you've been pretty steadfast all along in sort of staying at 4 and taking a player there, right, of good quality. So I still think that's the most likely scenario. What I would say, if forced to give a prediction right now, I know every week I say to you with the 4th pick of the 2025 NFL draft, I would say that it's Vrabel and Campbell. I just think that's a marriage that is going to happen. And I think no matter what happens in that top 3, I'd be surprised if the Patriots get off that train, unless they're just sort of trying to pull a fast one on all of us.
And here's what's amazing is that this is the kind of luck that the Patriots have had the past couple of years, that of course there would be 2 quarterbacks available with 2 other players in the top 4, yet no one really is in love with the second quarterback, Shadeur Sanders, right? If they say you took Drake May off the table, you just looked at last year and it was Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, right? I know people they liked Jaden Daniels. I don't know if anybody thought he would be so good rookie of the year the way he played, but you get the point is that somebody would have flown up to grab one of these 2 position players or one of these quarterbacks. Unfortunately, it's Deion's kid, and now there's starting to be the blowback of the whole, well, it's Deion's kid. What kind of circus might come with it? I wouldn't worry about the circus that comes with it. I'd be more worried about how his dad did a horse shit job of coaching him because the guy can't coach. So that'd be my bigger worry. But nevertheless, we and the second round pick, Jay, becomes important. And I look at it this way. Think of this. Say the Patriots move back up into the first round with that second round pick. The trade would essentially be the Patriots second rounder for a first, and you in essence traded Matt Judon and Joe Milton to make that deal happen. So if you think of it from the bodies that were involved in the picks, you'd send a backup quarterback, a DN that was fading, your second rounder for a first rounder. When you take the picks out of it and you think of the players that you gave up to get those picks and you look at it that way, doesn't it feel more like a steal if you go up and get Connerly or someone like that?
No question about it. And while we've had so much discussion about the top of this draft, it is going to be a fascinating, bottom 2/3 picks 10 through 32. I can't get enough of it. Friday, I just think it's going to be one of the more interesting drafts sort of across all of the rounds that we've seen in a long time. So a couple things I just want to sort of bounce off of you. Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. I can't get that name out of my head. Without the injury, I think a lot of people think he's sort of a top 10 talent. Vrabel has the Ohio State connection. Gosh, I hope they find a way to get that guy on the roster somehow. Your thoughts?
Well, if there is a different pick at 4 than we expect in terms of Campbell, I think that guy is making his way to New England. And if they sit on the second round pick and don't move and he's still there, I think there is a chance that they could double up on the line of scrimmage and go for both Simmons and Campbell when it's all said and done, because I think Vrabel wants to make this over. And Jay, I did a little bit of research on the Patriots coaching staff, because I'm glad you brought up Simmons, because there normally is on a lot of these coaching staffs some connective tissues to, their existing schools or where they were, right? So this dude, Riley Larkin, right? You couldn't pick him out of a line. I have no idea who the hell he is. He's a Patriots offensive assistant, but you know what he was? He was the assistant quarterback coach at Ohio State last year. So he would know all of the warts of the offensive linemen, but, and I know you're going to love this, I feel the big Anik grin coming when I say maybe down the line in the 5th or 6th round, or when it's time, you got somebody who's been with Will Howard at Ohio State. And if you want to take your next young quarterback with a little bit of championship credibility, you've got a guy who, when you're in the quarterback room, you're learning about all of the other people on the roster. So I just wonder if this Riley Larkin kid, along with those deep connections that, Chip Kelly was there last year too, tons of New England connections there. It makes me wonder how many of these Ohio State kids could be in play along the way.
Yeah, and when you bring up Will Howard, he made some comments about Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver on Ohio State. I'd love to see him find his way to New England. I just think he's going to be a great pro. I really do. This draft is so unique in terms of just people talk over and over again about the depth at certain positions. And I think there are going to be a lot of guys that are sort of later in the draft that perform quite well. Ted McMillan, like I can't tell if I think he's going to be a bust or I think he's going to be great.
Yeah, I think Ted will be okay. But again, he'll be a 10-year career type guy, have nice numbers, make a bunch of money, live a great life, I think. Let me give you – I know that you're going to bring up the kid from Ohio State. Let me put another guy on your radar here. And again, it's a connective tissue pick. There's a top 75 player out of Utah State, a wide receiver named Jalen Royals. And depending on whose list, he's anywhere between, say – 70 and 85, depending on who you're reading or whatever. Overall player ranking, right? So this is a top 100 player. And there's a Patriots offensive assistant who was with the Seahawks last year, but he was at Utah State. This guy, Chucky Keaton, who was the running backs coach there, when this guy Royals really popped off and had a big year. So I just look for some of those, right? Because like you mentioned, the kid from Ohio State, they'll have good intel. Maybe you want a 3rd-round wide receiver who is a slot guy.
He's got it.
Who's perfect to kind of challenge Pop a little bit in terms of that inside role. Because I wonder if they're going to sour on Pop because he is little, but another story for another time. But I'm with you. I think there's a lineman coming in. I think there's also going to be one wide receiver in the first 2 days, and then you throw some 6th and 7th round stock a la Kayshon Boutte and try to bring some people in on the back end that you take some flyers on.
And you got to save a pick for a kicker, do you not?
I'm really torn on this because I think you could take one along the way, and I wouldn't blame them, but I don't know. Unless there's somebody that really jumps out to you, you're probably just, better off living with whatever veteran you can get and hope they don't soil themselves. Like Vrabel ran and got Nick Folk, but he's 100 years old, can't kick 50-yard field goals. You love to find a guy with a big leg. I'm torn on that, Jay. I don't like, because there isn't a kicker that jumps out where people say, holy hell, you better grab this guy.
Well, right. And, a guy like Chad Ryland, who is part of the reason Drake May was able to walk through the door because he missed a late kick during the season last year. But then he had a good year last year with Arizona. So I think it is a little bit of a crapshoot. But my brother, John Anik, when he's handicapping football games, the kicker is, oh, gosh, I can't handicap a football game without him talking to me about, head coach, quarterback, kicker. And so I do think for the Patriots, I think, it's a big hole right now. It's an important piece. So
it is. It's something that they got to get fixed. And I guess I would just feel better with a veteran and sort of live with the results. And of course your brother would be on that. True D-Gen knows that 3 is the most important number in football. 3, 4, and 7.
Right.
Those are the numbers that everybody's on. And kickers, well, they've made kickers relevant now, Jay. Think about it. Extra points. Now they miss them. Field goals are longer than ever before. I'm waiting for the 4-point field goal to come. It's going to happen.
Well, don't hold your breath. And I know we're going to talk about betting later, but I will just say, right, we've talked a lot on this show about some of my brother's gambling successes, whether University of Florida, 30-1 or whatever it is, but it goes both ways, right? So yesterday, at one point, he lost 10 straight bets yesterday, right? Closed the night hitting his last 3. But I bring it up in context, right? He is a fucking quantity guy, right? He probably, he'll have days where he got 15 straight wagers. You know what I mean? So for me, I lost a bag on the Lakers the other night. I'm coming back with them tonight to recover some of that. But I just wanted to bring that up in context, right? He calls me today. He's like, I lost 10 straight bets yesterday. So yeah, we talk about the wins, but you can be sure we talk about the losses too when the wives aren't around.
Which is good. And I know that the basketball, listen, we're not ignoring the Celtics. I mean, we're all, hot and bothered for the draft and stuff like that. But why don't we just slide some Celtics in here quickly, Jay? Now the basketball has come up. Game 2 against Orlando is tomorrow night. Celtics are 12.5-point favorites. The total is under 200. I can't remember the last time I saw an NBA game where the total was under 200, but that's kind of the style that the Celtics forced the Magic to play. I like Tatum to bounce back. Didn't have a great night. Landed funny on the wrist. Apparently it's okay. He landed on the wrist and then came back and knocked down a 3-pointer right away. So I'm hoping that it's good. But I like the Celtics because they locked up Orlando defensively. And I think not that they'll keep that in their back pocket. They may not play that hard a defense in the first half here tonight, but I think they know if they need to frustrate the Magic and really kind of run them out of the building defensively, they have the ability to do so. It's a lot of what we expected.
I agree. And I can see the total at 199.5. It's there for a reason. Orlando Magic were the best defensive team in the NBA during the regular season. And I could tell when I look at them against the Celtics. And I love this test for the Boston Celtics in round 1, going against a defensive team like this, because all NBA teams elevate their defensive effort in the postseason. Some of them play better during the regular season, more effort. So I love this matchup against Orlando. And that first half, Orlando was everywhere, every loose ball, offensive glass, just eating the glass. But then ultimately the Celtics just are way too much because, gosh, man, I don't want to fast forward, but if they find a way to win this title, this is one of the best teams of all time. What they will do, if they find a way to get this back to back, they're struggling a little bit in that first game, right? But then, Peyton Pritchard comes in, and Kristaps Porzingis, when healthy, he's moving as well as I've seen him move in a long time. I would argue he's a top 10 player in the NBA. His value on the defensive side is equal to the offensive side. The term unicorn may be overused, but gosh, Porzingis is a unicorn. If he is healthy, I look at the Celtics team, of which I am a big fan, and gosh, they're good. I just think they're going to be really tough for any team to beat if they are healthy. And I think they're at a different place than they were last year, right? They went 16-3 in the postseason last year. 1 out of 16 has already been, right? 15 more wins. I think it's going to be very difficult to beat this team.
I'm with you. And they played defense. They locked Orlando up. They frustrated the hell out of them. And I mean, they were big favorites in the series. I thought the easiest play of the weekend was the number 1 seeds in the first half. And they both covered. And I mean, the whole play-in. Hey, here's what I rolled out on national radio. Instead of the play-in, Jay, would you sacrifice the stupid play-in at the end of the regular season for a tournament for the number 1 pick, where we took the 4 suckiest teams and got rid of the lottery, which is a sham and people hate it to begin with. And we put it would have been Utah, Washington, Charlotte, and New Orleans. And we put them in a tournament, and the winner gets the number 1 pick. So we get rid of the lottery. We change the play-in so that a 48-win team like Memphis didn't have to play 2 more games to get in a spot that they earned during the regular season.
I absolutely love it. It's a challenging thing when you talk about, the 4th worst. How bad are they compared to the worst overall? But
Right.
I will say this year, I believe was the first time a 10 seed, the Miami Heat, emerged and won those 2 road games to get into the postseason. And I know that I believe the Heat would give the Cavs a bigger test than you did. I think I texted you like, oh, I like that Cleveland's going to have to go through this Miami test. And I think your response was Cleveland in 5. I don't agree with you. And you very well may be right, but you're still going to have to deal with Spoelstra and Adebayo and Hero, right? So I feel as though for Cleveland, and maybe not different than that Celtics getting a tough Magic team, but I think the play-in tournament, whether you like it or not, I feel like this year, for whatever reason, maybe a team got in that really deserved that 8 seed in the Miami Heat, despite that funky season with the Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, it is interesting. You could put, I think qualifiers on a lot of it in terms of those bottom teams. They're all different roads, and it's just weird to see the Warriors play Memphis. They're 2 48-win teams, and they're playing to see which one's the 2. I don't know. It just bugs the hell out of me. But hey, look, I want the Heat to give Cleveland all kinds of problems. I would love for the Heat to really be a thorn in the Cavs side, because I think there's a chance the Cavs are getting the Bucks next. And with the way Giannis is playing, he can affect the game in a way that I don't know if Cleveland can kind of respond to. So I think the upper part of that East bracket is pretty good. And look, Detroit's wearing out New York, so maybe that ends up a 6 or a 7 game series, because I think the Celts, whenever they close it out in Orlando, they might stay for a couple days because they can go sit on the beach if they want to.
Well, no, I think and the Celtics it would be well served to handle their business here. I think they're going to be some close series here. Detroit, New York tied at 1. You talk about Milwaukee maybe getting through that series. They're down 1-0. Damian Lillard comes back in game 3. So I think that potentially could be a long series. And even when you look at the Western Conference, I think there are going to be some long series over there. The Lakers. What do you think? You think the Lakers bounce back tonight? They looked awful.
Boy, I think it's going to be tough. I think they do. I think they figure out a way to slow down Ant-Man. Every time I question Ant-Man, he just continues to play better and better. He might be one of those guys who might be good enough to drag a team to a Western Conference Finals. But I do think the Lakers kind of bounce back a little bit. Look, my thoughts on Luka. I rolled it out on Mad Dog Radio this weekend, and it got picked up by a couple of people where I don't think you need to be Fellini. You didn't need to be Fellini. The end of the damn movie last year, Peyton Pritchard was unafraid to drive it on Luka. What do you think Ant-Man's going to do? He's going to laugh at that guy's face. And that's the thing about Luka, is that he's so good offensively, but if there's a great player on the other side, he's negated. So the lack of defense stands out more and more. And that's why I'm kind of hedgy on the Lakers, because Luka's a great offensive player, but he can't stop a nosebleed at this point.
Well, Minnesota's got dudes, right? And you think about the Lakers in this spot right now. I mean, even seeing Dante DiVincenzo come off the bench, you're like, okay, that's a deal. Good luck with that. And this trade for Luka, right? And we can talk about Nico Collins, you can talk about the Dallas side of it, right? But yeah, maybe Luka's going to be sort of carry this franchise forward when LeBron is out. But if they don't win a title together, right? Right.
Agreed.
I mean, think about from LeBron's standpoint right now. It's like, how much is LeBron feeling this roster overall, right? Do you think LeBron thinks they got a shot to hoist one this year? I don't know. They better show something tonight.
Yeah, he's gotta fake it to make it. But look, the rest of the West outside of Oklahoma City is pretty bunched up. Last year, there were, because I looked this up because I had to remind myself, I think Oklahoma City only won 57 or 58 games last year, and the Nuggets and I think it was the T-Wolves were right there with them. So when you look at even though Oklahoma City ran off to the big record, I don't think there is a massive difference in the West. Hey, by the way, you need to download the John Anik app, where you will see Jay and John and everybody on there on the John Anik app. And I get the sense that maybe after May 10th, Jay will probably be doing a podcast with Bilal Muhammad But right now, that's I would say shut down while the champ's getting ready, right?
Yeah, Champ Camp is live, so remember the show. We sort of go dark, but I tell you right now, this guy is ready to go. I believe some of the words from text messages were, quote, "kill this kid" from Bilal Muhammad. So I think he's ready to go. I'm excited for May 10th. You can be sure. 2 weeks from this weekend, our producer Cody Merrow will be there. I know we're going to transition to the NFL, but I want to ask you one question. I don't even, before we get off the NBA.
Please.
Cleveland, OKC. I know for the Celtics, OKC would not be a talking point unless they make it to the final. But which team do you think is a tougher matchup for the Celtics? Because I know you like the Celtics against OKC. Which is a tougher matchup? Do you think Cleveland's a much tougher matchup?
No, I think OKC is a tougher matchup because they have some length, and OKC has among the few guys in the league who, from a length standpoint and being able to move and shoot the three, who might be able to match up a little bit with Porzingis. I know that Mobley, different kind of player with Cleveland. I still think Porzingis wins that battle, but you match up Porzingis against Chet Holmgren. You got SGA at point guard, who's got to deal with two defenders, not even named Tatum and Brown just yet, if you really think about it. But there's other players on OKC that I think make it tough. But you and I were talking a little earlier here on Gas about the uniqueness of Porzingis. I think OKC is the only other team who has a player or two that can even match that. So that's why I lean them.
You know, I feel as though you and I are, which is kind of odd as Celtics fans or New Englanders, I feel as though we're as bullish on the Celtics as maybe anyone I hear talking, right? Juxtaposed to Cleveland, right? I talk to a lot of people that really believe in this Cleveland team, a lot of smart Celtics fans even that are really feel threatened by Cleveland. Whereas, you know, I know it's not great when show hosts agree, but I feel as though you and I have like supreme confidence in the Celtics' ability to get through Cleveland if in fact they get there.
100%, bro. And here's the thing. And even we as diehard Celtic fans, right? Even we have forgotten the hidden motivation. And as a quick reminder, let's remember that 20 minutes after the Celtics won the championship last year, what was the talk around Jayson Tatum? Oh, he didn't win the MVP, all that stuff. So, you know, deep down, he's ticked. Brown, he wants to continue to validate himself as well. But Jay, the thing that we don't want to talk about that is also part of their motivation is this might be the last dance for this group. New owners coming in, decisions have to be made. It's uncomfortable for us to talk about. That's why I never bring it up with you, because it is kind of hanging over the organization's head. That's why winning another one is vitally important.
I couldn't agree with you more. And when you look at a team like Golden State, really maybe the last dynasty in the NBA, being able to inject Kevin Durant into that changed things dramatically, right? And the Celtics are not going to have that luxury. It's going to be more subtraction rather than sort of adding one of the greatest players in the league, right? And even if there's some fantasy Luka Doncic trade out there, you're going to be giving up Jaylen Brown to do so. So to me, I think professional sports are very odd. When we used to watch the Celtics growing up, you're going to have 10 years, you're going to have the same roster. It's just, it doesn't work like that anymore. Even when you talk about the Patriots number 4 selection as only really being a 5-year player. So that's why I think it is paramount. The way things have played out, the Celtics are healthy now. It's an enormous opportunity. And if you can get that second championship, then you do open the door for these veteran minimum guys and to be able to sort of hold it together to potentially really chase something special. But one game at a time.
And they got Crazy Joe Mazzulla, and you and I both love the guy. He has been planning for this. His regular season was get through it healthy, and this is where he's really, I think, starting to coach his tail off.
Just phenomenal. And quickly, I just want to say on the Rockets Warriors, because when you talk about Mazzulla, I think about Ime Udoka, who I like maybe just as much, believe it or not. But everyone said the Rockets.
Put your dick away. Put your dick away, Ime.
Hey, he's a smooth cat, and I'm not. Anyway, I don't know what he's doing. But Houston, right, definitely looked pretty vulnerable against Golden State. A lot of people expected that to sort of go down that way. Imagine being the Houston Rockets, achieving what you did in the regular season, and here you go, Steph Curry, the Golden State Warriors, and they got Jimmy Butler now too. I think it's going to be tough for Houston to make that a real series.
Yeah, I think they're losing that series. Absolutely. And this is where youth is served. And I know I've talked about this with the Celtics matching up against Cleveland, but these teams that are young, look at what happened to Detroit first came out. What are they up 97-90? And then they give up like a 21-0 run and get blown out of the building. That's the stuff that happens to young teams. And I think Houston got slapped with that a little bit. Ime Udoka is like that unk. For like people who are like, oh, I got that unk who will say anything, will do anything, will like whack anybody upside the head. He'll tell you the way it is. He don't care. That to me is Ime Udoka. So let's see how Houston responds here in game 2. Did unk Ime get through to those guys to be able to beat those olds on the other side? But I think that series is fascinating for so many reasons. Jimmy Butler's been fantastic.
When I look at the whole sort of NBA and the scope of it, I do think Cleveland, I think you're probably going to be right that Cleveland may get through Miami a little easier than I expected. But I believe the Celtics postseason, and I keep going back to this 16-3, it does matter. It does matter to get through some of this stuff. And I think the Celtics have been very guilty of, I believe, maybe all 3 of those losses, if not 2 of them were at home last year, at least, right? They love losing games at home. It's like, you put Orlando down 2-0, you really send them back down to Disney, wondering if they're going to be going back up to Boston. And I think that for the Celtics, as this is going to play out, I think a lot of teams are going to beat each other up. And I think the health, if they are healthy, they are going to be almost impossible to beat. So prioritize that. Don't fuck around.
And Jay, one other thing, and when I mentioned the individual part of what was the talk 20 minutes after the finals were over, a part of that talk was also a lot of people like Shaq and others saying, hey, it was an easy road for the Celtics. So there's another sort of, I think that's the one that that's the card that maybe Joe Mazzulla ends up playing, because it's a team card versus, hey, JT, look, you still get no respect for MVP. Go show these fools who you are. You want to get the team's attention. It's the whole, hey, they said y'all had a cakewalk last year. Well, let's prove them that it's a cakewalk because we're really good, not because of who we play. I think that's something that team can really rally around.
Oh, so well put. I couldn't agree with you more. And history will reflect favorably back on this team, right? Yep. Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic were on that team that you beat in the NBA Finals, and to handle them the way you did, I think was impressive. I know so they were young in the front court, but that just is what it is. But I'm excited for the Celtics, and as a guy who doesn't watch a lot of regular season basketball, I'm excited that they matter, and I can do that countdown from 16 wins down to hoisting it.
Oh, I love it. I'm so excited for the Celtics to kind of get this first round series over with, and then let's see who they match up against. So I know we're going to hit some betting the NFL draft, and I know, Jay, that one of the exercises we wanted to do quickly, and we'll probably end up going into a little bit of gas overtime here, but if we follow the betting markets, what will the top 10 look like? Because the betting market did get a little wonky on Monday. There was some movement, and even within this, there are some hedges in there. So if we just go by the betting markets, right? Tennessee, number 1 pick, because they can't put who the team would be. It would be likely to be number 1 pick, blah, blah, blah. So to be number 1 pick, Cam Ward is minus 20,000. To be the number 2 pick, Travis Hunter is minus 1,000. Jay, I'd throw your hand up if there's like a disagreement here.
Yep.
To be the number 3 pick, Abdul Carter, minus 600. To be the number 4 pick, Will Campbell, is minus 380. So let's stop down right there. What do you make of that number, Jay? Because you and I have talked about this pick for a while. Hunter was in there. Campbell was in there. Jeanty is in there. Now it's Campbell with a pretty big number beside him to be that 4th pick.
I played Will Campbell minus 125 to be the first offensive lineman taken. And, who knows if that'll happen. I think if the Patriots pass on him, I do think there are certain teams that probably value Membu above Will Campbell. The value to me here is Ashton Jeanty plus 650, 100%. I think that there's I think some of those rumblings for guys trading up into the 2 or 3 spot, or teams wanting to move into those slots, I think some of that may be for Jeanty. And if the Patriots are really considering trading out of that spot, I think that Jeanty would probably be the guy that people come up to get if it goes chalk 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and that's interesting because you're right. It's the whole chalk 1, 2, 3 part of it, because that, Abdul Carter number is pretty juicy as well. If you think Shadeur ends up going to the Giants, there could be more opportunity there. Here's the one that's really interesting, because this is right now Jacksonville's pick. But to be the 5th pick in the draft, Jeanty plus 1, I don't know if that number changed. I can't see it.
Plus 120.
Plus 120 now. So, dude, I looked last night. It was plus 135. And Mason Graham was plus 155.
It's so interesting because a lot of these lines went away and have sort of come back, especially down here locally in Florida. Gosh, man, I think, I come back to what I said off the top of the show. What is noise and what isn't, right? You talk about, even a guy like Bill Simmons, as soon as every chance he gets, putting over Shadeur Sanders with the hope that maybe that'll open up the board for the Patriots. And I think that, I don't know what to believe what's out there right now. And so ultimately, I'm just going to sort of stick to what I believe has been the truth going on. It feels like almost 2 full weeks that the consensus may be what happens. For me, when we think about teams moving up, I just can't give me the name of that said team. That's the problem. I can't think of that particular team that is going to be motivated to give up a bunch to get X player.
Well, and the whole Vegas part of this is interesting because Jeanty is minus money to be the number 6 pick, which is Vegas. But Jay, in this world, if we flipped Vegas and the Patriots, Jeanty goes number 4. Does that change what the Jacksonville Jaguars would do? So are the Jaguars looking at Will Campbell and saying, well, if he falls to us, we're going to take him? Because then if you're New England, you're arguably maybe drafting Campbell a spot or too high. But when you look at the team that is there versus just, hey, who could be this number 4 pick? And you start to think about what Jacksonville could do if Campbell were on the board, then it adds a layer of context to that, to a possible move where you're like, oh, man, do we really want to slide out of here? Maybe we could get him at 7, but is it really worth the risk when it's all said and done? So, yeah, that's where the Jeanty thing is really, really interesting. Hey, there are some the exact order is something that I think we need to kind of take a peek at as well, because I know we're running up on time here. By the way, great job by DraftKings on even offering this. I didn't know it was there until last night, Jay, quite honestly.
Yeah, I mean, some of these, gosh, man, I mean, not my betting on the first 5 picks. I mean, I guess here's the thing. I'd probably go with the second option there.
You know what? I was going to say the exact same thing to you, bro, is that I really think that second option with Mason Graham in there at number 5 is the one where it's going to land.
So Mason Graham, Abdul Carter.
Bone loves to do these, throw all these together. OKC and the Celtics with what was that? Campbell plus.
So I know we got to get out of here. Well, I'll say, and Cody's got Anik Florian podcast coming up too, but I will say, right, this draft, I'm as excited for this draft as I've ever been. And my wife has dinner plans on Thursday, the 24th. So I have 2 daughters, age 8 and 11. Right. And so I'm just venting a little bit here. Right. It was a date proposed by some other friends of hers. Right. And sort of a deal breaker. And so, we sort of swallowed hard and said, absolutely, honey, I love you. It is the absolute worst possible night that you could be doing this. But so we're going to have some navigation. I'm thinking they usually go to bed about 8:30. So I'm going to start about 8. We're going to do the quickest bedtime routine of all time and then get myself down here because I don't like missing a moment of this.
Okay, now, as someone who went to the draft last year, I will tell you this. Everything's going to kick off at 8 o'clock. But a lot like kind of a UFC pay-per-view, you got 10 minutes from the top. Gotcha. So if you can get the bedtime duties handled within like 15 minutes of the start of the draft, because you'll miss a lot of the gobbledygook, the pyro, the ballyhoo. Hey, here's Roger Goodell with some, veteran or something like that. Or, here's the oldest woman in Green Bay with her, her pie recipe or something like that.
I can miss Cam Ward. I don't need to watch Cam Ward.
No, but I feel like you have 15 minutes at the beginning of all of the gobbledygook and the, hey, here's Mel Kiper, here's whomever, da-da-da. So I feel like you might have a buffer to where you got a little wiggle room before you really start to get into the good stuff.
I hear you. Well, I'm excited, man.
You can make it happen. I was in Detroit last year, and let me tell you, just the amount of people to show up for the draft is amazing, and I give the NFL a ton of credit. They've turned it into an event. All of these companies now have figured out that, hey, these places, now the NFL's taking care of their own, but, hey, these places will pay you. Like, I'm a big wrestling fan. Guess what? WWE got a ton of money from the state of Nevada to go put 125,000 people in the desert for 2 nights for WrestleMania. Just the way it is now. So these people, these cities are paying for it. But that woman who lives like 75 yards or whatever from the back of the draft stage, that's where her backyard is. I wouldn't want to be that lady the next 2 nights.
But it's just unbelievable. I mean, Dude, the
Like,
scene in
constant.
Detroit.
People be peeing in the streets and everything.
But I'll let you get us out of here. But last year in Detroit, like Amon-Ra St. Brown leading like the whole crowd in like a Jared Goff chant. That was incredible. So
it
what
was,
a night,
it was cool. And they packed the downtown area. It was made for it. I don't know how they're going to do it at Green Bay. Have you ever been to Lambeau?
No, that is a bucket list. I really want to go there.
Me too. And you know what you'll do? You'll realize that the Patriots stole the idea for the Patriots Hall of Fame from the Packers Hall of Fame because they look pretty similar. But
it's okay.
I'm with you because the Packers are running out of people to put in that Hall of Fame. The Patriots have guys standing in line waiting to get in to get their red jackets. So nothing to complain about, like you said. Hey, I will be a part of the ESPN radio coverage right after the draft. So they'll have the live draft from Green Bay, and then I'll be on game night on ESPN radio until like 2 a.m., kind of breaking it all down, talking about the trades. It'll be a ton of fun. And then Sirius XM on Saturday morning, 9 a.m. to 1 on Mad Dog. And then Infinity Sports Radio on Sunday, 10 a.m. to 2. A little move around for me on Sunday this week before kind of that final round gets going. They wanted to move me up. So, no problem since big draft weekend. So
good stuff.
There we go. Anik Florian coming up later today, correct?
Yeah, 12:15 live, I believe, Cody.
Wow. All right. So we got to get the hell out of here.
They tried to bump us, Gresh, but Cody took good
That's
care
a lie. Yeah.
No,
did they really?
No, that was
it's gas first on Tuesdays, baby.
Cody took care of us. I just was choosing to try to throw my brother under the bus, but Cody's loyal. He wouldn't.
No, I'm surprised he hasn't hit you over the head with a chair or a clothesline or something like that already for messing with him. But and I met Kenny Florian's cousin used to come to our Patriots post-game shows at the old CBS scene. I don't know if you ever met him. He looked like him, but he came up to us probably like a half dozen times and told us who he was.
I love it.
But he was perfectly nice, big Patriots fan, all that stuff. So there we go. There's my Ken. That's the closest connection I got to Kenny Florian.
It works.
That is it for Gas. We will be back next week with your draft recap and all the ways the Patriots have disappointed us. No, they're going to make us happy. They're going to do a good job in this draft. We are out of here. We'll see you later.